Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Hank's Think Tank on this glorious Good Friday, April 2nd, 2021. Today's episode is going to be in our entrepreneur series, and we're going to be talking to Mr. Kristopher Burr of Adventure Sports and Outdoors, Bayou Vista, Texas. He's got a great story, very successful so far. He's going to tell us how he got started, what he ran into, how he overcame a lot of things, and we will go from there. Kristopher, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Hey, man, what's going on?
Well, I made the long drive from Galveston, but here I am.
That's a good trek. Appreciate you coming out this far. I know it's a ways.
Yeah.
So, especially like on a Friday morning early. So, what time do you have to leave? About 8 o'clock?
Yeah, I left at 8:15, but luckily it's Good Friday, so everybody's sitting at home.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
It's like a weekend.
Go. Yeah.
All right. Well, I did get a chance to get on Facebook, and I watched every video you posted, pretty much read all your posts, and it took a while. But you got an amazing looking store, and I hadn't really considered these type of kayaks before, because like you go to Academy and you go to these other places, they have all the standard stuff, and it doesn't have all the stressed out stuff that I saw that I didn't know what the hell I was looking at in these kayaks. So really I wanted to get into that first and talk about, what's all the round port looking things look like they screw off, and the netting, and, full size chairs. And I got to say this, guys, if y'all go to his Facebook page, the I guess, what is it, the wallpaper thing in the front?
Yes, sir.
It's a picture of him and somebody else just fishing. I stared at that thing for probably 15 minutes, and I thought to myself, man, how freaking peaceful. I don't get out and go anywhere and do anything anymore.
Serenity, man. Yeah.
And I mean, legs stretched out, sitting in a full-size chair, got some fishing poles behind him and a cooler behind him, and I just thought to myself, I'd go ahead and row all the way to Tahiti in that thing.
Yes, sir. One of the greatest things about kayaking is you kind of trick the universe. So you're so quiet and so stealthy and so close to the water and so close to nature. It's almost, as cliche as it may sound, is one with nature. I rolled up on hogs and certain birds and wildlife that have never seen a human before. And they will stop and admire you as you're admiring them. And it's an amazing thing out there on the water, the serenity that Mark mentioned.
Yeah.
I've solved most of my problems of my life out there on the water. It just me, the Lord, and the water. The only thing you think about is, how do I get that fish to bite that little plastic lure? And that's the only worry you have when you're out there.
And just being out there is it for me, because I don't know how many fishing trips I've been on where it's just been beautiful and serene. The weather's great like it is today. Didn't catch a damn thing. Successful day.
Yes.
I'm good, It's not about the catching and the, bragging about the big stringer and everything. It's just the being out there. People kind of miss a lot of that in their day-to-day, and I'm glad to see somebody focusing on that part of it.
Absolutely. That's part of where the name comes from, adventure. Every time we go out there in a kayak, it is an adventure. It is fun whether I catch a fish or I catch 100 fish. That's irrelevant. The fishing part is just a bonus.
Yeah, there you go. So what's the deal with all the contraptions on these things? And they're obviously very different.
Yes, sir. I'm a tournament fisherman. I a redfish tournament fisherman. And when you're out on the water in a tournament, you spend 8 to 10 hours on that little piece of plastic. So a lot of that is comfort, ability to protect your phone and your belongings you bring with you, a lot of waterproof compartments. There's all kinds of bells and whistles. I have one that's like a Cadillac. You can sit on that thing for a year and you'd have enough room for everything.
That's cool.
But it's 99% comfort. A lot of people, when they first get into it, which is good for me, they buy a lot of stuff that they don't need. Mm-hmm. The simplest you can be on a kayak is the most pleasant experience you're going to have. A fishing pole, tackle box, cold beer,
yeah,
and maybe a radio.
Yeah, and that way you don't have too much stuff to worry about.
Exactly, because you know, one thing about a boat, a house, you always need one bigger.
Yeah.
And so on a kayak, you don't really have too much option. 16 foot's about the max you're going to go.
16 foot. That's pretty good size, man.
That's
I don't think they got that big.
Yeah,
is that the one with the prop? Because I saw one with a prop. I was like, that's the one for my lazy ass.
The average kayak, especially in coastal areas, is going to be 13 feet with the wind and different things. A lot of people prefer 13 feet. Nothing under 13. It's okay if you're just getting out there for recreational purposes.
Yeah.
But the wind, it's going to track better at 13. You're going to span the waves better. So there's a lot to the 13 foot. So 12 to 13 foot is my number one sellers.
Wow.
You have a prop drive, you have a fin drive. They all have different purposes.
Yeah, and the fin drive is like the foot thing, right?
Yeah, the fin drive it's got like flippers.
Yeah.
The one you're talking is a prop drive, just like a boat motor.
Yeah.
There's pros and cons with both, obviously. I prefer the fin drive, but you can go in shallower water. You're going to get tangled in grass. But a lot of people like the prop drive because my particular model doesn't offer reverse, but the prop drive does offer reverse.
Oh, cool.
So there's pros and cons, and then
it's just like a trolling motor, right? Just battery operated deal.
It's leg. You operate it with your legs. You
Oh,
pedal
really?
just like a bicycle. So.
Oh, that's cool.
And I do have jet trolling motors called Bixby, and
Yeah.
they bolt right onto the kayak. They have a lithium-ion battery. They will not get tangled in weeds. It's a pretty cool contraption. It's
Yeah.
a little bit costly, but when you consider buying a trolling motor from Academy and buying a $200 battery, you're
Right.
almost to that price. So
Yeah, and actually just going and buying a boat,
yeah,
trailer, having to store it, having to trailer it,
yes sir.
having to launch it.
Bring
Been
out-
there, done that. So
Bring out another 1,000.
Yeah.
Part of the reason why I got into kayaks is
Yeah.
because fuel prices, maintenance, storage. Man, you can get on the water for $1,000 and be comfortable.
Yeah,
That's the way to go.
yeah, that's cool. So, it seems like it'd almost be. And I was thinking about this because I wake up in the middle of the night all the time, start thinking. So I woke up last night about 3:00, started thinking about this whole thing. Two things came up for me. The first one is, how do you get in it and launch it at the same time and stay dry, or is that possible?
It's 100% possible. If you're launching at a boat ramp, you put it in, turn it sideways, you can walk right onto them. I mean,
Really?
they're as stable, if not. I would even go as far as to say they're more stable than boats because the one thing you may or may not know about kayaks is they have scupper holes in them. And with the scupper holes, you actually have holes in your boat. So
Okay.
you're sitting below the water column. The water is coming into your kayak and you're become one with the water, and that's where the stability comes from. Now, like on a boat or a canoe, you're on top of the water, so
Right.
you lose your stability. You're like a bobber. You're floating up on top. It's easier to load from, say, a boat ramp with a dock on it. You can just, but the thing is, and when you're getting in a kayak, just to quickly state it, when you commit to get in it, you get in it. You don't hesitate.
Yeah,
Right.
Because
Yeah.
if you
aren't any second options.
if you shift a little weight this way or a little weight that way, you're getting wet.
Yeah.
It's the getting in and out. Because at that point you are top heavy when you got your foot in there and the rest of you is trying to get off that dock. It can get a little weird. I do a lot of pleasure kayaking, like Barton Creek and the Kamal River and that kind of thing. And getting in and out is it's the deal. It's everything.
Yeah, see, these bigger ones are 36 inches wide. I mean, they're
Really?
big, wide kayaks. And,
Man, that's a good size.
that's why a lot of people will spend up for a better kayak. You go to Academy or Walmart or one of those. I'm not saying they're bad kayaks, but one, you're going to get the quality you pay for. But
Right.
two, it's not made for, the everyday, the guy that wants to fish every weekend. That's made for the guy that's
Right.
going to take it camping with him one time or a year.
Right.
And we do this. I literally, it's kind of slowed down lately since I've been so busy, but it was nothing for me to go every night and go fish on my kayak.
Cool. So in inland, I guess you fish in inland waters like the bay and stuff like that, or where do you go?
There's pretty much no water I haven't tested. I haven't done a lot of rivers. Ocean, we go, it's called BTB, which is beyond the breakers. And we launch on the beach. We go out past the big rollers and,
Wow.
and sometimes go all the way to the rigs.
Really?
So like a
That's a long way out.
Yeah, it's about 2 miles to
Yeah.
the one from Bob Hall in Corpus, and that's the closest one. In a tournament, I'll do 22, 23 miles on a kayak. So 2 miles,
Man.
it's not a big deal to coast around an oil platform and catch snapper.
Which led to my next thing I thought about, and I had to laugh about it, because I thought to myself, I guess it's possible. Is it possible to catch a big enough fish to where the thing will start taking you in the kayak out?
Very common, isn't it?
Yeah, it's called the Texas Sleigh Ride. So
How the hell do you overcome that?
So there's been a time where the kids are on the beach and I'm out fishing in the beyond the breaker, or someone is, maybe not me, but catch something a little bigger than what you wanted to catch.
Yeah.
And that's part of the kayak. And a lot of people are used to boat fishing and they crank that drag down and they fight the fish with the drag.
Right.
With a kayak, you want to run a looser drag and fight the fish with the kayak. So the idea is you want the Texas sleigh ride because them pulling you and your boat around is going to wear them out. So
Right.
I have heard of stories where guys have started on one part of the beach and ended up 3 miles down the beach because
Sure.
they caught an 8 or 10 foot shark.
Wow.
And yes, it does happen. I have caught gar that are the size of my boat, and redfish. They fight pretty good. And
Yeah, reds will fight for a while.
They don't fight very long, but they fight very hard.
Yeah.
And they will pull you around too. It's one of the more enjoyable things is to have your own trolling motor, your natural trolling motor, towing you around.
Right. As long as he's going in the right direction. Right?
Exactly,
That's
and
gotta
9
be cool.
times out of 10 he's not. So.
Right.
Well, I know that also you carry coolers and tackle and rods, and I mean,
I'm going. I started in just doing kayaks, and I decided, hey, I can make a living at kayaks, but why not divvy into other things? So I actually have FFL. I do duck hunting supplies. I do outdoors. I'm going to do tents. Anything.
Really?
Adventure sports and outdoors is a hit on Academy Sports and Outdoors.
Okay.
Because at some point in my life, in the near future, I want to be the small mom and pop academy. So I want to carry everything they carry, but I still want to give you that feeling of, hey, you can come in and talk to somebody that knows what they're saying.
yeah, and see that to me, that's the big deal because you're not going to get that at Academy.
No.
Those guys don't.
Oh, not anymore.
You know. Yeah, I mean,
You
maybe,
remember the first academy that I know of was on I-10, right around Bengal or Blaylock, right in that area in Spring Branch.
right?
And it was an Army surplus store. Had some deactivated missiles outside. It was just in a strip center, and you walked in. It was kind of dark. A lot of clothes. True Army surplus. And the old guy there, had retired Army engineers or something, and he knew exactly what you were looking for when you told him and where to find it. And that has certainly changed when that burned down, and then there was 30 of them all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing that separates me from a lot of my competition. Whenever I meet a customer and they engage with me, whether they buy from me or not, they're still a friend and a customer to me. So I have literally had customers come to look at my kayaks, decided that's not what they want. And I tell them this at the store. You're new to kayak, and if you have any questions, I appreciate the sport so much. I don't care if you buy my product. I don't want you to buy junk. I want to give you the pros and cons. And literally the other day I had one, he went and bought a different brand that I don't carry, but he called me from the store because the guy didn't know what he was saying. And I said, yeah, that's a good kayak. If this is what you're wanting to do with it and that's in your budget, get it, and enjoy it. Now, that alone has got me more customers than my regular customer service because he's like, this guy doesn't care. He just loves the sport.
Yeah.
And
Right. That's the way to build a good reputation.
exactly.
Well, and it's old school customer service. Business doesn't
Right.
believe in that anymore.
No.
I mean, they really don't.
There is no customer service
Yeah.
anymore. I mean,
Yeah.
you go to a gas station, the guy won't even get off the phone, much less look at you.
That's it.
And I have been pretty rude with him before and say, excuse me, I'm fixing to give you money. Get off that phone and,
Sure.
see that I'm standing here in front of you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think when you go to the store and they have the self-service checkout things, that's ballsy.
I
man.
don't work here,
Is that-
man.
Yeah, is that ballsy or what? I mean, really, it's ballsy.
Well, it's become the norm, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I'm
And
putting
they've
it
got
on-
one checkout open, and the line's 50 feet.
Home Depot ditched all their checkers and went all self-checkout. And their theft went from, I think it was like an average of like 26%. I talked to one of the managers, like 26% to like 80. Theft went way up. And they don't care.
I
They
think
don't care. They write it off, man.
Well,
don't care.
they crunch those numbers, and they didn't have to
They-
hire and
yeah, they
train
knew what they were
somebody.
getting
and,
into.
like, okay,
it balances out.
Yeah.
And I know I'm going to put them on my W-2 because, when we go to Walmart and I have to ring myself up, I'm paying myself.
Yeah, no shit.
So
Right.
I'll be
Right.
claiming taxes through Walmart this year.
That's it. But yeah, so I mean, yeah, good customer service is going to be key always, I think.
Yeah.
If you can do it. So, because every once in a while you're going to meet an asshole. I mean, they're going to walk in the door and they're going to, that's just the way
There's
it's gonna
always
be.
one. I mean, you can provide the best product. I can give you $100 bills and you'll complain to me. One customer will complain to me that it's wrinkled.
That's just dealing with the public, and
Human
I'm sure
nature.
you've had a few of those in your store.
Yeah. I've had I would say 99.9% good reviews and good people. I honestly can't remember, and I'm not just saying this because I'm on air, but I can't remember a customer that was upset with me. And that's my ultimate goal. I mean, I've had experiences where customers bought a kayak and, okay, long story short, he went to stop to get breakfast. Somebody tried to steal it. The straps got undone. The kayak fell out, got hit by an 18-wheeler. Never made it on the water.
Wow.
He called me and said, I know you can't do anything. I said, well, come pick up your new kayak. And he said, "Are you kidding me?" And I said, "Yes." And not only did that happen, this is how the kayak community works. I gave him the kayak on my good faith that it was worth it to me, and it was a tax write-off, and there's business to it.
Sure.
The company that brand of kayak was called me, and I won't mention their name, but they said, "Don't tell anybody, but we're going to replace that kayak you gave away. I don't want them to know. I want them to think you're the guy that did it."
That's
and
cool.
that spoke volumes to me with that vendor.
Sure, absolutely. So let's talk about your FFL a little bit. I saw that on your Facebook page that you did firearms transfers.
Yes, sir.
So how does that work?
So it's a really unique market, firearm transfers. You go to Academy or Cabela's or something, they charge you $35.
Okay.
You come to my store, I charge you $10. If you have an LTC, I charge you $5.
Okay.
You show me your license to carry, I give you the gun, you walk out, you pay me $5. Everybody says, "Well, why do you do that?" Well, it's a piece of paper. I can fill it out in 20 seconds. So
Right.
when I do 150 of those a month, that pays my rent for the store. So I'm plenty happy with that.
Yeah, there you
it takes
go.
no labor. It takes no overhead. And plus, I really have a love for guns. I'm quite a collector of guns. I support any advocate of guns. I support a lot of things that I probably shouldn't say on air. But I love the sport of guns. I love the sport of hunting. I love the sport of shooting. So I just want to be there for the customers and provide them a service.
Nothing wrong with that, man. It sounds American to me.
That's
I like
wonderful.
Americans myself. I'm an American. Mark, are you an American?
I think I am.
I think so too.
Yeah, I think we're
So
old.
hell yeah.
I think we're old school Americans.
Yeah, that's
the
it.
new Americans, I don't really want to be, part of that.
Yeah.
'Cause,
Yeah.
But
I'll keep my freedom, thanks.
yeah, thank you. I'll keep my liberty and freedom.
But what was involved in getting the FFL? Just a matter of paying the government entity some money, big background, wait time.
With giving up too much information because it's easier than you would think, not to the fact that it's unsafe. I do have to turn in fingerprints. I do an FBI background check. But everybody thinks it's this big thing and it costs a lot of money. My wife's dad was an FFL, so she was thrilled to be one and follow in her dad's footsteps. In fact, my FFL and my store is actually owned by my wife.
Okay.
There's multiple reasons for that, and I won't go into that. But plus, she can be trusted with the money. I can't.
But it's understandable too.
I like an
because
honest man.
Females are still minorities, and minority-owned businesses get a lot of perks.
So you read right through the lines. I mean, everybody else plays the game. I hate that it's that way, but if you don't follow the game and go through with it when you're in business, you'll get left behind.
Yeah,
and
sure.
there's plenty of free money out there to get for anybody that wants to start a business. Just go look for it,
Right.
And but back to the FFL, it is difficult. You do an FBI interview. It's basically asking, they inspect your store, they inspect your safe. They want to make sure that the guns are going to be safe and not get into enemy hands, and you're not the type of person that's going to sell to what you know to be a criminal. Obviously, we don't know 100% of the time. This whole psych evaluation they want to do before buying a gun, I can't afford that.
That's
you can't
just a
afford
bureaucratic layer to slow and stop people.
Yeah, and I think what's going to happen, and we're already seeing it, is they're going to learn and get smart, unfortunately, and tax the ammunition. We can't do anything with the guns, but if we tax the ammo so high, you can't shoot them.
Right.
That's hilarious.
Then you've got a club or a rock. Yeah.
Exactly, and that's
They floated that back in 2014 or 15, and it went away.
Yeah, I think they're going to shortly get smart enough for that, and that's why everybody's hoarding the ammo right now. And they
tax
all
it
know
as high as cigarettes,
I mean, if it costs you $10 a round to shoot someone, you're going to go get that bullet back out of them when you're done. It's
that's crazy.
It's going to be to that point. So
yeah, or it won't be available. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, Obama did that with the AK-47 rounds, and it killed me because for me that's my favorite platform. It's a gun that's going to fire whether you run it over with a tank, drop it in the ocean, stick it in the mud. I've seen a guy put 14 Twinkies into it and it still fired. So that's the gun I want as a self-defense rifle. I know there's
7.62 by 39.
Yes, sir. I actually have both, and it's a cool story. My wife is, obviously I said her dad was an FFL. Well, short story, she was at the shooting range shooting one of our AKs, and this guy came up. I was shooting somewhere else, and he come up and he kind of tried to hit on her, and he's like, "What you doing there, honey?" Whatever. And she goes, "I'm shooting an AK-74," and he says, "No, honey, I think you got it wrong. It's a 47." Well, my wife jumps all over him. She says, in 1974, against Klitschnikova's once in needs, they developed the AK-74, which is also called the poisonous bullet because it tumbles twice when it hits the flesh. It was to compete with the 223. They didn't have to alter the frame. They just altered the mag and the mag carrier on the inside, and they could carry more ammo. And I don't know if anybody knows this, 223 is not a killer round.
Right.
It's made to wound.
Right.
So the idea is you wound one, you take 3 people off the field.
At least.
It's not a big round. You got 2 people carrying the wounded. So he developed not him, but they developed the poisonous round, which is the 5.45. And it's equivalent to the 223. I think it's a much better bullet, not for ballistics, but for that purpose. And so anyway, she bled into him, and he had no idea, and he kind of walked away with his tail between his legs, and I, just did one of those, that's great. But AK-74 is one of my favorite. It is like shooting a 22, but it is a really strong, powerful round, and it's very affordable.
Huh. I hadn't heard of that one. So
It looks exactly like an AK. It's just, like I said, a smaller round.
Smaller round.
Yeah.
So is it still a 30-round clip, basically? Or?
I mean, I have 75s.
Really?
It just depends. You can get on the same banana clip you would have on an AK-47.
Yeah.
You can almost double the bullets.
Wow.
So that's the really cool part. You can carry more rounds, and they're lighter. And Klitschnikova hated it. He never wanted his platform to ever be anything but a 30 cal.
So does it still have the same reliable range as just the regular AKs? Or?
I would say, AK's not really got much range. It's not very accurate. You're aiming for a silhouette when you're using an AK-47. I would say the 5.45 is even more accurate than that.
Really?
It's just a lot smaller round, flat shooter, faster trajectory. I mean, it's a lot faster, so it's going to get there and punch the target a lot quicker.
Cool.
And the rate of fire is much faster than the 30 cal too, because you're chunking out a smaller piece of steel whenever you're releasing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So. Well, have you considered doing any kind of a training or anything like that? Maybe getting together with a gun range somewhere in your area and working a deal out?
Most FFLs have their own kind of self-defense and LTC guy, and I will adopt somebody at some point, but mine's more to, let's just be frank, I like guns, so it's more to get a discount for my own stuff, but also the transfers is a real important thing. That's the majority of the business. Yes, I have guns in stock, and yes, I can get you what you want. Well, maybe not at times like these, but it's just to bring another customer in my store. It's kind of like, a guy that hunts knows a guy that fishes that knows a guy that does this.
There you go.
Why not grab them all and get them into one store?
Yeah. And I also saw that you had some sort of bike there. It looked like an electric.
Yeah, so that's an electric bike with a lithium-ion battery. It'll do roughly about 40 miles on a battery charge, and it will do up to 20 miles an hour.
Really?
And a lot of guys use that for cross training. They'll push themselves to the limits, or if you catch a cramp, you can cruise on back home. Or if you're just lazy like me, you just put it on electric all the time and ride around and enjoy the breeze.
That's what I would do.
Yeah, it's a really cool bike. It's a kind of a beach cruiser style, but it has shocks on it, and it also has 6 speeds.
Yeah, heavy.
So it's pretty heavy duty. I mean, I was impressed. It has all of the components of real name brand parts. It is a made in Chinese bike. It's very hard to not get anything made in Chinese these days.
Yeah,
in China these days.
Yeah, that's for sure.
But all the components are name brand components, and that means a lot. Your brakes, your gears, your battery, stuff like that.
Wow.
So it's a really cool bike. I haven't got to test drive it yet. My wife and my partner at the shop is like, hey, we can wrap it with shrink wrap on the tires. Nobody know we used it. And I'm like, no, it's for sale. Let's sell them. It's too much of an investment to enjoy for myself.
Yeah, for sure.
So is that just going to be like a test run to see if you have any interest in it, and maybe possibly ramp that up later?
That's absolutely it. So my shop is in my neighborhood, and my neighborhood is a coastal community where there's a lot of walking up and down the street and riding bicycles. So I thought it would be a great fit. I brought them in to see how they would do, and there's a lot of competitors, that have similar bikes, but they're much, much more than this one. So I was trying to that's my whole business motto, is to be on that middle level where you don't sacrifice quality, but you're getting a better price. And that's why I went with this bike. It's actually out of California, the company. We actually picked them up in Arizona and brought them here to test them out. So.
Cool.
Yeah, it should be interesting. I kind of want to get on one. I got the itch, but 20 miles an hour on a bicycle when you're not having to pedal sounds pretty fun.
You can go how far on that, they think?
They said 4 to 8 hours, depending on hills.
Yeah, hills and the weight of the rider.
And total distance, the most I think they said they clocked is 48 miles.
Man.
So
Yeah.
It's
You can
pretty
put some
bad.
big knobbies on that and hit the dunes, man.
Well, it's got big tires on it, and looking over here at my buddy that I've known for many years, Mark Hogan, it would be a great thing to ride to the deer stand.
There you
It makes
go.
no sound. It's easy to hide.
Stealthy,
It's
too.
very stealthy. So.
I can put a camo paint job on that you will love.
Exactly, and that's what I'm getting at. I mean, they sell one called the Quiet Cat. It's roughly $4,000, and
Yeah.
it's got big knobby tires. This one is $999.99, so
Yeah.
it's $1,000. And
Which ain't bad.
no,
Yeah,
I
it's
mean you
not bad.
can't buy a regular 21 speed for $1,000
Yeah,
nowadays.
for sure.
Oh, I know it.
Yeah. So how'd you get into the whole sports business? I mean, you had to do something before that.
So-
I assume it was like oil field or something.
Absolutely. I was in the oil field, so this is going to be a fun story. I was in the oil field and actually hated fishing.
Really?
And the reason I hated fishing was because when you go fishing, if any of y'all have been fishing, everything goes wrong that can go wrong.
Murphy's Fishing.
Yeah, Murphy's Fishing. Absolutely.
That's
Murphy's.
just standard Hank fishing.
I quit fishing many, many times over my career.
Yeah, like when my son's hitting the tree over there, and I said, "Hey, that's not a Christmas tree. Stop decorating it with my lure."
Yeah.
But so I actually hated fishing, and it was a love hate, but it was more hate than love. And I had got away from fishing, and I had been hunting a lot. I hunted with Mark quite a bit back in the days. But hunting, when you go hunting, it takes you away from the family for more than just a few hours. So I would be gone from Friday to Sunday. I wouldn't see my kids, and I'm very much a family man. I have 6 beautiful kids at home, and obviously a beautiful, lovely wife. Everybody could see her on Facebook. She's always at my store. But I decided at one point I was going to get back into fishing. I met a guy. He was a manufacturing engineer, and he was into kayaking. And I had kind of dabbled in kayaking, but not to this level. And got to talking to him, and my wife, I go home and say, "Honey, I'm going to buy a kayak." And she's like, "Are you freaking crazy?" And I said, "No, a couple guys at work do it. I'd like to do it with them, and, it sounds fun." And we started to look at the price of kayaks, and your ocean kayaks at the time were about $1,200.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of money for a guy that's working in an oil field with 5 kids.
Right on. Yeah.
And so, anyways, long story short, this company called Vibe Kayaks is who I'm their major. That's my major brand
Okay.
that I carry. Was coming to Texas. They hadn't even really made it here yet, and I come across them, and it was like, oh, $8.99 comes with a paddle, has a seat, lifetime warranty on the hull. Sounds too good to be true, one of those things. And long story short, we ended up. I called Vibe the guy that's selling for him. He's up near Waco. And I said, "I'd like to get a Vibe kayak." And he goes, "Well, they're a new company. There's a wait list." And I said, "Well, wait list? What? I come from this generation where I want everything right now.
That's right.
I'm in the microwave world. We
Yeah,
get
that's
our
it.
chicken pot pie in 3 minutes. We don't wait an hour anymore." So anyways, the whole time this has happened, this is the cool part of the story. My wife is calling the same guy and telling him, "Don't tell Kris I'm buying it for his birthday or Father's Day or Valentine's Day." So they stalled me the whole time. And
okay.
meanwhile, she's paying for it and doing it all behind my back. And then she sends me to go get the kayak. And I don't even know what I'm going to get because my mom lived up that way. So she, pulled a fast one on me. He's lying to me and telling me, "Hey, they're not coming. I don't know when they're going to be here." And I'm getting discouraged. I'm looking at other kayaks, and my wife is steering me another direction because she already knows the game. So anyways, long story short, I had to drive to Waco from Houston, which is, I don't know, roughly 2 hours.
Yeah.
To get the kayak. I went out on the kayak twice. I didn't catch a fish. I hated kayak fishing now. But I enjoyed the kayak. I said, "This is a great kayak. I mean, this is fun. It's comfortable. It's a good exercise." I was getting kind of round, so, the paddling was my exercise. And I talked to some guys, and they said, "Hey, take a guided trip, catch a fish, learn how to do it, don't give up, But that's on another cliff note, I should say.
Yeah.
So I fall in love with the kayak. I fall in love with kayak fishing. I wouldn't say I'm great at it, but I got better at it. And I called Vibe out of the blue, and I said, "How come you don't have a dealer in Houston? There's 7 million people in Houston. It's pretty stupid business, to not have a dealer in Houston." Well, I didn't
Close
realize.
to the water, no less.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I
really.
didn't realize how much of a baby company they were. They barely had any dealers. They were just getting started. So there's a man that was there that said, "I don't know." He gave me the old field salute, I don't know. And I said, "Well, what does it take to be a dealer?" He said, "Buy 6 boats. You're a dealer." I said, "I don't have money for 6 boats." And he says, well, this is what you do. You grow it organically. And I said, what the heck does that mean? He said, well, run an ad, and this is when Craigslist was popular. Run an ad on Craigslist, say pre-sale, new kayak coming to Texas, 2 weeks out. Put your pre-orders in now. And would you believe it or not, people gave me $899 to pre-sale of a guy that doesn't know anything about kayaking, of a guy that's never been kayaking but 3 times at this point, just knew it was a good product.
Yeah.
And so the first week I sold 10.
Wow.
So it was a pretty good chunk. So obviously I'm a dealer now. I got 10 kayaks. Plus the profit from the 10 bought me another 4. And I have literally grown it organic over the years from that first 10 pre-order to now I order an $80,000 or $90,000 container a month.
Wow.
So growing it organically is a really cool term, and I'm glad that he was there to mentor me to do that, because
I like it.
I wouldn't have known how to do that. We were waiting on a tax income check coming back,
Right.
going to make that work, and I ended up. So basically, I grew a company from nothing. That's basically what it boils down to.
Are you contractually assigned to a certain region? I mean, you're not going to have another Vibe distributor open up down the block or anything.
Yeah.
Right?
So every company that you deal with in I'm sure in every industry, but in the fishing industry and what I've been across is they all have a certain mile radius where dealers can't be. So me being the entrepreneur that I am, I started Houston, obviously. And let me tell you, I started from a storage unit that cost $80 a month. People would meet me at the storage unit and be completely sketched out, because here I'm meeting this guy I talked to on the phone at a storage unit. Is he going to rob me?
Yeah.
And I developed Houston. I am the name in Texas for Vibe. If you get on Facebook and somebody mentions a Vibe kayak, it doesn't matter what part of Texas they say, talk to Kristopher Burr.
Yeah.
And it's just because of the years of doing it. Well, there's competition in the market. So what I did is I moved to Galveston. I said, hey, I'm going to open a store here, and we'll get back to that. Well, Beaumont, San Antonio, doesn't have the volume to keep a store open.
Right.
So now I've created satellite stores. So I upcharge them a little bit of what I pay, and they get to sell and make profit because they can't afford to buy a container.
Right.
So I'm basically a distributor to an extent. And so now I have locked in San Antonio, Beaumont, Galveston, Houston, and what more is there to Texas, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we pretty
That's
much
good.
we
Yeah.
have it locked in, and it was a great development. I have some good guys that work for me. One's at County Home and Outdoors. They're in Nederland, and the San Antonio one is Fancy Finn, which is a buddy of mine, Oscar, that I've known since I got into the industry. He also does it's called. Anyways, it'll come to me. He does a big thing for the kids, and Academy sponsors him, and he's real involved in the community and helping the community.
Cool.
So, but yeah, I mean, the more recent business thing, just to kind of roll off of that, and I got to give props to my wife on this, is I had gotten laid off during this COVID thing 3 times, twice, and fired once. Fired.
We talked about fire just last week.
Yeah, I did. I remember. I heard that on the podcast.
That guy, he'll just blindside me right here on camera.
Have you ever been fired, Mark?
Oh, well, let's see.
Yeah, 11 times. No, I wouldn't call it fired. I mean, they did give me a severance package. But so, as you can tell, I'm a pretty vivid personality, if you could call it that. I don't care what you think. I don't care if you like me. I'm going to tell you how I feel, and I take pride in what I do. And
American.
Yes, exactly.
You're an American.
Exactly. So
there you go.
I would get to a company, and they would tell me they're going to turn the reins loose on me, and they wouldn't like the way I did it.
Yeah.
But I'm producing. So you take the good with the bad. So the last company that laid me off, I won't say any names, that was a great company. He wanted this project done, but we have a monthly number to hit every month. Well, my part of the company was 3/4 of the company's number. So we're sitting in a meeting, and he's telling me this thing that I developed wasn't pretty enough. And I looked him straight in the eyes, and I said, I'm here to keep people employed, and that's my goal. If you want it pretty, now's not the time.
Yeah.
I can start on it the first of the month, in the middle of the meeting, which may not have been the most appropriate place to do it. But I had the right place and the right time, and I hit my number. When I got there, they were at $600,000 a month. I hit anywhere from 800 to 1.2 million every month. So obviously I'm doing something right.
Right.
And they went from no planner, that was my job as a production planner, but I was basically production planner, volume stream manager. They didn't have one of those. I was running the guys on the floor. I was running the guys. Long story short, they let me go. He got on my LinkedIn and said, "We'll have to pay 4 people to do your job now." And I go, "Yeah,
So why shoot yourself in the foot like that?
He wouldn't ask me to come back, but
It's
he was
corporate America, man.
Yeah, he was he was hinting to it, but he wasn't going to formally ask me to come back. I said, "You thought I sat around in that office and did nothing, but I take pride in what I do, and I'm good at what I do. I might not be as orthodox as everybody else as far as
The results speak for themselves.
exactly." And I had done the project he asked. It just wasn't pretty enough for him, and that's kind of insulting to me. Like the system works. What it was capacity.
Right.
It was capacity planning. So it was a special product. And not to get into too many details, you can't just do capacity planning. For one, they never knew what their capacity was. So I developed their capacity. I did time studies. I mean, I'm the one doing this, all of this.
Right.
And then I developed different groupings. So how long it would group to run this valve from this size, and how long it would take to run this valve in this group. And then I developed it into the capacity planning. So I could tell customer service, well, as it looks on my schedule, at 8 a.m. on Thursday, that valve should come off here, should go on. We should be done by Tuesday of next week on this time. They had nothing like that. It was call and go run to the shop and see. So I felt like I had accomplished something, and here he is slapping me on the wrist because it's not purple.
Yeah.
So I think he learned his lesson in the long run, but
Managers.
there's not too many employees like me. I give you all I got. And
Managers.
I'm a firm believer in, I don't work for you, I work for the Lord. And I told him that when he hired me.
Yeah.
Funny story, just telling you my vivid personality. He says, this cliche, where do you see yourself in 2 years? I looked him dead in the eyes and said, sitting in your seat.
Awesome.
And he said, well, I never heard that answer before. I said, well, I'm not going to be a planner forever. I'm going to be a plant manager.
Yeah.
And he said, well, they hired me, so
Yeah.
obviously it was the right thing to say. But
There's a lot of words for that attitude.
Yeah.
Pluck, moxie. There's another one.
cocky.
Could be.
Mine was confidence. It's a little different.
There you go.
There's a thin line.
Right.
But I had been doing this job since, for at least 10 years. Planning was, I had already moved up the chain to production manager. Let's see, I was manufacturing manager. I was a purchasing manager. So I had started from forklift all the way to the top. And you're taking all of this free knowledge that I'm giving you at a very cheap rate at this point. It might not seem cheap to him, but when he had to pay 4 employees to do my job, I bet it feels cheap now, don't it? But you took all that knowledge and you just threw it away.
Yeah.
And they did really do me fair because I hadn't even been there a year, and they paid me the max severance of a 4-year severance. So they did really treat me
That's
fairly,
good.
and I will give them that. That was unheard of.
So if he comes in to check out your kayaks, I'm sure you will treat him fairly.
Yeah,
and
of course.
sell him one of his own color choosing.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes,
So-
sir. Yeah, I have no. I'll tell you one thing that I learned in life: a grudge and unforgiveness, it will kill you.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's much harder on yourself than it is on the person you're trying
Yeah,
to.
because they don't know you feel that way, but
Yeah.
you do.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And
so you're constantly just wrecked with it.
I did a little example for some kids one time. I'm a very spiritual man. You can call it Christianity. I call it spiritual. But I put a foil ship. I built a little foil ship. Not anything fancy, just a little cup out of foil. And I explained to them how unforgiveness will sink your ship. And what I did is I would stick a needle in it. And I said, look, that ship's not sinking, but there's a hole. And I'd stick another one. I said, that's another guy you don't forgive. And eventually that boat filled up with water, and it sunk the ship. And I explained to them, you may not see that it's hurting you by not forgiving somebody, but it's hurting you, and it's eating you alive. I lived with depression my whole life. I lived with unforgiveness for a very good reason. I was suicidal, homicidal. I was crazy. And it literally, people that are out there that are listening to this, suicide's not an option. It's selfish.
Right.
I tried it. I actually pulled the trigger. The firing pin hit the primer. The primer didn't go off. I still have the bullet. And that was the Lord telling me, you have a purpose, sir. That's not for you. But to get back to that, it's a hard hole to climb out of. It can be.
It really is.
It can be done. And for me, it was a good spiritual background. It was a good support system. And then I just looked in the mirror and didn't recognize myself one day and said, I don't want to live like this anymore. And I changed my life. And that's going to fall right back into the company. So rewind back to, I don't know the year. I've had a lot of head traumas. I probably did a little more partying than I should. So my memory's not what it used to be. I'm not speaking on that.
He thinks he's funny.
Yeah. But not long ago, I would say, let's see, Ryan is, so 8 years ago, he just turned 9. 8 years ago, I was sitting in front of a jury facing 20 years in prison.
Wow.
With no car, no house, no nothing, not a dime in my name. 8 years ago. It sounds like a long time, but 8 years is not a long time.
8 years is yesterday.
Especially when we get up in age, 8 years goes like 20 minutes.
Amen.
So while I'm on trial, my brother dies while I'm on trial in a car accident. I basically had got to a point where, with my faith, I didn't really believe in anything. I mean, and that's a hard way to live. Like
It's rough.
I have no faith in anything. So anyways, I somehow stumbled into a men's prayer meeting, which I give that man that ran that my life. I mean, he was not the Bible thumper that'll judge you.
Mm-hmm.
He was not the guy that thinks he's better than you. He cursed at me. He took me hunting. He was a great guy. My parents, they're great parents. They just weren't tapped into that atmosphere. They led me. They gave me a good floor to start from. But this guy kind of elevated me. So anyways, long story short, my mom, my dad, I was guilty. I'm 100% guilty. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. What they charged me for, maybe not. Mm-hmm. But you put yourself in an environment, you're going to get hemmed up at some point. But anyways, my mom was worried. My wife, who was not my wife at the time, was pregnant with my son. Or maybe it was my daughter. I don't remember. It's like I said, either way.
Well, you got 6. It can get confusing.
Yeah. I don't even know all their names at this point.
He's got them written down, I'm sure.
Yeah. Dad, how old am I? Old enough to remember?
Old enough to mow the damn yard.
Yeah, exactly. You got it. That's the number one answer for I'm bored. Well, I can find a chore for you. But anyways, to go back to it, I was guilty. My brother died during it, so it was a pretty dramatic experience. I met this man. He basically changed my life. But to say that I stood on faith through that, steadfast, like nobody has ever seen in my family, would be an understatement. I said, don't worry about it. The Lord's going to take care of it. If I go to prison, I go to prison. There's a reason,
Yeah.
So, I mean, we can rewind and I can give you what happened. I drove through a house. We'll just be plain and simple. I mean, I'm not proud of it. They said I was intoxicated on alcohol. There was no proof of that. Yes, I was drinking. There was probably extracurricular activities that were going on that would cause me to not be that drunk. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
So we did find evidence of a car hitting me. I had a gash on my head. To this day, I don't know what happened. I think I was robbed, and I was trying to get away and passing out at the wheel. Don't know. Don't really care. That's neither here nor there. But I was guilty. I was intoxicated.
Yeah.
And this was multiple offenses for me, and it was multiple offenses for the other offense, which was a gun in the car. And you can't have a gun in the car, and you can't drink. Alcohol and guns don't mix. So.
Yeah.
Anyways, long story short, we sit through this whole trial. I don't want to go into all the details of how the Holy Spirit spoke to me and all that, but I got a not guilty verdict, and it was unbelievable.
Cool.
And I had made an oath to the Lord and to my family that I'm done. This is it. I'm not living that life anymore. And at that moment, I changed my life. And within 2 years, I had a house, I had a car, I had a family. Now I have, 4 or 5 cars. I have a beautiful house on the water. I have my own business. I'm working on buying another business, and I'm starting another business.
Shit.
So you can turn your life around.
Oh yeah.
And
it's hard to start from zero, man.
Yeah, and I 100% did. And without the support of my wife and without the mentor, Tim Dixon, I'll say his name, and he's just an amazing guy. I thought he was an asshole in the beginning, but he was the right kind of asshole. I mean, he was that. I mean, for instance, we weren't married at the time, and we were having premarital sex, and he was the guy that came up to me, and he's a pretty big guy. He used to play football for San Jack. I think it was San Jack. Anyways, he looked me in the eyes and he said, "Who do you think you are putting your hands on God's daughter?" And that immediately convicted me, and I wouldn't touch her.
Wow.
And we got married 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
It's
That's
just
cool.
It's just been a blessing.
That's the smartest move you ever made.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad I locked her in. If without the support of her, and this is going to go back here in a minute of how I opened the store.
Okay.
Falling back to that story, I got laid off. I was depressed. I looked around. You drive down the street. I want you to look at all these little bullcrap stores that They can't be making. You can't make rent selling candles.
Yeah, I've never figured that out, and I've done the same thing myself. I've ridden past a bunch of businesses and thought to myself, how? And I know what commercial rent is. It's really high.
Yeah.
Then you've got insurance, and you got light bill, then you got water bill, then you got taxes. I mean, you got CPAs, you got how the hell?
Exactly. You look at them and they're like, they sell rope. Like,
right.
Are you freaking kidding me? Like, what drugs do you have in the bag? So anyways, at one point, I got back into my depression. I had fallen back into it. And this is just recently, because I only opened this new store January 12th, I think.
Okay.
My wife said, I can't deal with you. She's like, I was depressed. I was like, what the hell's the point of life? Like, I work so hard for someone, and I've been laid off the whole time in the oil field.
Yeah.
I bust my butt. I'm hard to get along with, but I mean well, and I get stuff done. And I was just down. It's like, how do you make money? How does anybody make money? Is this all a scam? Is it just a joke? Does everybody just run up credit until they die? And
yeah.
Bless her little heart, little Debbie, 5'2", 100 pounds soaking wet, comes in the kitchen and pretty much, I don't think I've ever heard her cuss, but I think she let a couple of them out and said, look, I'm tired of you feeling sorry for yourself. She said, we don't have a lot of money in savings right now. I want you to take that money. I want you to go make this company that you started years ago work. Stop sidestepping and doing it as a side business. Make it full-time and get your ass out there and do it. And I was like, whoa, who's this little
yes,
firecracker?
Yeah,
yeah, just like everything else, I always get the last word in my house. It's usually yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
And that was another case of the yes, ma'am. So she had pushed me to do it. And Lord, if she hadn't have done it, I mean, we would have been in trouble. And now, just in this short 3 months, I think our savings account is bigger than it's ever been. Our family life is better than it's ever been because I don't have to go to work.
Yeah, because you're not working if you love what you do.
Exactly, and that's the main thing in business. Find something you love to do and then find a way to make a living at it.
You'll never work a day in your life.
That's
exactly,
right.
And that's sort of true. But, I love to fish. Guess what I don't do anymore?
Fish.
But it also goes with, I'm almost 40 now, and I'm looking to the future. And not my future anymore. It's the kids.
Sure.
And so I actually sat them down at one point and said, look, Dad might not be around a lot. I try to spend time with each one of them one-on-one. I'm pretty crappy at it. I mean, there's 6. It's kind of hard to stretch yourself.
And they've all got different needs, different ages. Yeah.
Right. So I sat them down and I said, look, I have a goal. I'm not living for me anymore. I'm living for you guys. And I said, if you help me understand this and help me, it'll be better off for you. I said, my goal is $1 million each for y'all by the time I die.
Awesome.
And they said, really? Is that possible? And I said, if you only knew. And I didn't, go into any details. Well, it brings up a good topic. So I started teaching them business at an early age. Rebecca, who's my middle child, who doesn't really get enough attention from me, because you got the babies and you got the olders, and you know how the middle child syndrome is. It's not a cliche thing. Right. It's an actual thing. And as bad as I hate it, she does get the middle child treatment from me. I explained to her how a spreadsheet works and taught her, and she actually used it in school the other day and got an A on a paper, and I explained to her how business works. So Walmart had some crab traps on sale for 89 cents, regularly $5. I bought everything they had. Mm-hmm. And I explained to her, this is how business works. I'm going to sell these to you for $2. You're going to sell them for $4. You're going to undercut Walmart, but you're still going to make $2 per product. I'm going to make the wholesale cost. You're going to make the retail cost. She goes, well, why do I have to pay you?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you're my dad. Why do I have to pay you? Well, I'm trying to teach you something.
Yeah.
So that was her first development in business. And so once I had the discussion with them that my goal is $1 million each for them, and I'm going to get there. I'm not going to say I'm close, but I'm going to get there.
Sure.
In the next 4 years. And then I can enjoy my life with them as well.
Yeah.
She said, Dad, can we get a cricket? I said, what the hell's a cricket? And a cricket, you can look them up. It cuts vinyl. You can use it for.
Oh yeah, I've heard about those.
Yeah, vinyl for the, like on the outside of my store. I have the vinyl on the window. I have one on the floor
for signs and stuff like that. Yeah.
Well, they also make T-shirts, and
right.
She owns the shirt company, and that's what we brought you was a couple of shirts.
Cool. Yeah.
So
speaking of shirts, I wanted to. Yeah, the logo's really cool. I don't know who did your logo, but it's great.
Yeah.
But I did order some shirts,
mm-hmm.
and I had them delivered. And Mark, I got you one. So here you go. It should fit you.
Awesome.
And,
I will wear it with pride.
There you go, from Studio 13 and Adventure Sports and Outdoors.
I'll wear it proudly.
Hold up that logo in front of the camera. Let's let everybody take a look at that thing, man. That thing's cool.
Yeah, so on the logo, we wanted to show what we do,
cool.
and fishing and guns. That's what we do.
There you go. I like it. Yeah.
Very nice. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So you need to wear that every day until it just tatters.
Day.
Till it's just tattered
Or at
out.
least every time you see me.
Yeah, there you go.
I'll probably cut the sleeves out of it and kayak on my little Pelican and down the Barton Creek Reservoir. And
That'll be cool. Spread this.
Hey, so I got a question. And I've been in a kayak before. I went out to that little bitty pond out in the woodlands and did their little kayak thing, and it was okay. It was hot as shit that day, but so I want to buy a kayak. I want to learn to fish. I'm coming to your store. So, I mean, can you kind of help me to pick something out that's right for me and then tell me where to go?
So I offer a really cool business thing, and a lot of my clientele, and I'm not saying this in a bad way, a lot of my clientele are just getting into kayaks. Some of them can't really afford the higher end brands. I mean, you can spend $4,000 to $5,000 on a kayak, which at that point I'm going to get a John boat with a 20 horse.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to save up for quite a long time before I'm gonna do that.
So a lot of them have never smelled, touched, sat near, seen a kayak.
Right.
They don't even know what it is, and they come in and they have an interest in the sport. Well, obviously you can hear my passion in my voice about the sport. So I've developed a program. I'm a Texas Parks and Wildlife guide.
Okay. Cool.
This year I have to do my first aid in first aid in CPR.
CPR?
And then I can go get my license again.
Yeah.
But I've developed a program where I can take you out fishing on one of my kayaks. If you decide you buy a kayak from me, you get half of your fishing guide trip towards the kayak. So I charge $150 for a 4-hour trip.
Okay.
And it usually takes longer than 4 hours. It's just most people in the summer, 11 o'clock, they're ready to get off the water.
Right, yeah. It gets
So
hot.
it's $150, and we do, and most people don't know this. In fact, I didn't know this. We do accept tips.
Okay.
if we do a good job. I didn't know I was supposed to tip my guide in kayak fishing. I didn't tip him, and I look like the asshole. But now you know. Nobody can say they don't know.
Yeah.
Well, you don't know if you don't know.
Exactly. I just didn't know. I was like, $150? That ought to be enough to pay his bills. He gets to go fishing and get paid for $150? How great is that? So if you come with me and you don't know which kayak you want, but you have an idea, I'm going to try to talk you into the one I think fits you best by listening to what kind of fishing you're going to do, because that makes a difference.
Sure.
And then I'll put you on the water. I actually live on the water. I have a private boat ramp next to my house that's 5 minutes from my store. So we'll get in the car, we'll go get on the water, and we'll go fish.
Cool.
Or we'll go just paddle it around the canals, whatever you want to do. But if you take the guided trip with me, $150 is what the cost is. $75 when you say, I want this kayak, or I want to buy a kayak from you. It could be a year from now. I'll take $75 off the kayak.
Okay.
So I actually had a scenario where a guy couldn't afford it. Not that he couldn't afford it, he couldn't budget well. He took like 11 or 13 trips with me and ended up getting a kayak for free.
Wow.
Not for free, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
He just couldn't. He's like, I can't save $1,000. I said, just keep going fishing with me. And to be clear, I do get to go fishing and get paid for it. It's fun.
Yeah.
But, kayaking guiding is not as fun as it's cracked up to be. I mean, we have to haul those things out of the water. We have to wash them.
Right.
It's usually in the summer when people want to go when they're off of work. I'm the guy that paddles. When I take 4 or 5 guys, I have to paddle back and forth to each one of them, make sure they have a cold beer in their hand all the time. I have the cooler on the back. I get to carry the fish. I have to fillet the fish. Mm-hmm. So by the time I get home, I'm beat down from the sun. I'm beat down from fishing.
Sure.
I have to clean the fish. I smell like a old goat. And then
and the sun will take it out of you.
Yeah, it will. I mean, 4 hours in the sun is a lot. And you're on the water, which makes it magnified.
Yeah.
So anyways, I like to talk to the person, learn what the person does, what kind of personality they have, what kind of fish they're going after. It all makes a difference. People think it doesn't, but I'm not going to put you in a kayak that I use for the bay to go down a river. They're not the same.
Right.
And people think a kayak is a kayak. Well, that's not the case at all.
No way.
So I actually take the time to listen to what your needs are, what your equipment you're working with. I mean, your personality. Do you want to? Are you hyper like me? And you want to bing, bing, bing all around the place, or do you want to just go out there, sit an anchor, crack a beer, and sit there with a catfish rig? You know,
sounds nice, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it really does.
You don't even have to have any bait on the line. Just sit there and enjoy it.
That's exactly what I used to do at the pier. I would throw my
jams playing, and you're just doing all right.
I'd go to the pier with a 12-pack when I was a beer drinker, and I'd throw the cork out there with nothing on there. And I had a little Vietnamese guy lean over to me, and he says, "Hey, you don't have no bait on there." I said, man, if I catch a fish, that's like work.
Yeah, right.
I'm just here to watch the
I
bobber.
don't want anything to break up the serenity.
Yeah.
So
So that's what we got to do. I've got a little old cheapy kayak, and I'm happy with it because it does what I want it to do. Maybe one day I'll get a big fishing kayak. We'll go down to Bayou Vista, check it out. He'll let you take something out.
Sounds
and,
good.
See what you want to do, and
Yeah.
then you can go to all around Austin with me sometime and kayak up and down those beautiful little rivers
Oh, yeah.
and creeks. Man, it's awesome.
Yeah, I wish I had more time for that because I really do enjoy the freshwater creeks and rivers. They're beautiful. I have to force myself to take trips. I'm planning one down in the Everglades, and it's a 5-day camping trip on a kayak.
Wow.
And
In
Awesome,
the
man.
Everglades.
I'm super looking forward to that. So it's all not public. It's all state land, or national forest, or I don't know what it is. But anyways, you pack your tent, you pack a little beef jerky and snacks that you can carry with you for 5 days that don't need to be refrigerated, and you paddle for a day and fish and
Wow.
cook whatever you get at the campsite. And it has 5 stops. And at the end of the 5 stops, the guy that I work with down there is going to come pick us up in a boat and take us home. So it sounds pleasant. I love like Austin and Canyon Lake, and the rivers up there is beautiful, and I don't get to see that. I get to see nasty, muddy, mosquito-filled marshland, but I love it.
Yeah.
That's my heart. I love the marsh. I mean,
There you go.
my wife, we go to De La Croix every year, my fishing buddy and me. Well, actually, a big group of us. We call it the Ramen Noodle Invitational because back in the day, they'd buy a case of ramen noodles and jump in Mom's minivan, and we'd all pile in and split $100 hotel room and stay for a week. So it's
There you
called the
go.
Ramen Noodle Invitational.
Yeah, I like it.
So I have to force myself. I don't get to go, but I do a lot of night fishing, especially during the summer. So it doesn't interfere with my family and it doesn't interfere with my business. So I watch the wife with kind of one eye open, and as soon as she passes out, I'm out the door.
There you go.
And so no sleep for the weary.
That's
These
it.
tournaments are kayak specific, I'm sure, but they're even broken down further than that, aren't they? Pedal.
Well, now they're pretty much allowing everything. They used to be that way, but a funny story. A good friend of mine and one of the best kayak fishermen I've ever met. I'm not going to say his name on the air because he doesn't deserve that much. Just kidding. It's Clint Bargy. He has pretty much won every tournament he's entered. Top 3, but pretty much won every one. So they would let us integrate kayaking versus the boats, and you think, wow, that's not good.
That'd be tough, yeah.
It's tough. Well, Clint Bargy smoked their butts for 2 years to the point that some of them, let's just say in theory, whine so much that kayaks are no longer allowed. It's not fair. He can go places I can't go. Well, get a kayak then. So
Yeah.
the greatest part of the whole story is Clint got a little fed up. I mean, here we are. You got a $150,000 saltwater fishing boat, and you're complaining about my $600 piece of plastic.
Yeah.
So at the end of that year, when they outlawed him, he says, you want to put me in a boat? He said, I have a 2 square mile radius on my kayak, or 10, but you want to give me unlimited? Good luck next year. And he smoked their butts the next year, too. So kayaking does give you an advantage on boats.
I would think so.
I mean, it does make you a better fisherman because when you have a big outboard, you don't sit still long enough. You're moving it.
Right.
In a kayak, you have to make it work because you can't go anywhere. Mm-hmm. And that's what made me a better fisherman. It's like I get on a spot and I go, man, the fish are got to be here. There's a deep drain. There's bait. The tide's moving. I'm going to sit here. And it's very hard for me to do. I have ADD.
Yeah.
And I've learned to do that, and it's made me a better fisherman. If I know that they're going to be there, they're going to be there. And Clint and his partner are complete opposites. Clint's a little more like me. He's kind of a bing, 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 wants to hit a lot of water. From what I understand, I've only fished with Clint a handful of times. And his other partner, his name's not even known because he's just that drawn out of the scene.
Right.
And he will park on a spot for 6 hours because he knows those 9-pound redfish are going to come through there. Mm-hmm. And guess what? Most of the time he's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you had that boat, you would have never stayed there long enough.
Right.
And then I have been in many situations where someone's sitting in their Simmons, which is, believe it or not, these boats cost like $100,000. I can't even fathom that. I remember when $23,000 Mercedes was top of the line car. So
Right.
$100,000 boat, like it's ridiculous. Anyways,
Well, they go up higher than that.
yeah, I
Really,
mean,
yeah.
a Simmons, which will do about 75 to 80 on the water, will run you about 165 brand new. So I've been on a scenario where he was right in the bay side and I was in the marsh where he couldn't get, and I'm wearing him out and just laughing and seeing his face. Like, you wasted all that money.
Yeah.
You know, now, did I envy him for having a boat to do 75 miles an hour? Well, yeah, but I'm never, ever, I can say this to this day, if I make $100 million, I am not spending $100,000 on a boat unless it's a yacht with a captain.
Yeah.
So,
Another nice thing to do. Yeah.
yeah, but the kayaking, it really, it's a different kind of fishing, and I'm going to tell you why I fell in love with the kind of kayak fishing I do. Rewind back to what I said. I was a hunter. I'm still a hunter at heart. I just don't do it very much. When I go kayaking, I don't sit on a big blue lake and throw a lure out there and hope something snags it. I'm hunting. I go in 6 inches of water and I look for the fish. So it's combined the hunting and the fishing. I won't cast. I may go out there all day and not cast. If I don't see the fish, I'm not casting. If I don't see a flash of a fin, a bait pop, a school of reds, or see them under the water, I don't cast. So they said, well, how do you always catch fish? I only go when I know the fish are going to be there, and I'm not poking and hoping like they did it, like when you used to play pool. You just hit a ball and hope one goes in.
Right.
So to have that experience of sight casting redfish in 6 inches of water where their backs are out of the water, there's really no better experience.
That's cool.
And redfish is my love of saltwater fishing. I mean, everybody's like, let's go catch some trout for dinner. Now I'm going to get redfish.
Yeah.
If I want dinner, I'll go get me a flounder at the end of my canal and stuff it full of boudin and crackers and cheese, and that's what I'll have for dinner. So.
Well, Kris, it's been good.
Yeah.
And, guys, if you get a chance to get on Facebook, check it out, Adventure Sports and Outdoors. It's a really cool Facebook page. I'm a little jealous because it looks so much better than mine. That's for sure. And this guy's got some great products in the store. So if you get a chance, get down in the store, mention Hank's Think Tank, and you never know, he might put something in your pocket. We'll see.
Yeah, if you mention Hank's Think Tank, I'll take a 5% off discount on your purchase.
There you go.
So we'll just go out there and say it.
Awesome.
Well, all right. How about that?
And I'm definitely going to get out there. But guys, here's the thing. We're just now getting into spring. It's going to be time to get this thing done. He's going to be out of stock soon. So if you're thinking about doing this, I'd get down to that store as soon as possible. Make sure you mention the podcast and see what we can do. So, and if you do go and if you do buy a kayak or anything, send me a picture. We'll put it on the next podcast. So I want to help this guy out. He's got a great business, great family, 6 kids. Wow. That's a lot of work right there.
Yes, sir.
Mark, good having you again.
Thank you.
Great intro.
Oh, you think?
I liked it. It was good.
We can cut another one. I'll make it even better.
No, that was good.
Okay.
And I was gonna jack with you if you did a shitty intro. I really was. So I was glad you did a good intro. As a matter of fact, next podcast I won't even be here. I'm just gonna let Mark knock it out. So, all right, guys. If you've subscribed to the channel the past month, thanks a bunch. We did hit our mark. We're at 204, I believe.
Less
right now. Yeah, and the month just passed, so we made it. And the next goal I think is going to be 500 subscribers. So work with me. If you got friends that that want to get some good information, send them this way. Tell them to subscribe and hit that like button. And till the next one, I guess we'll be out. See you guys later.
Thank you.
Later.
All right.